Hello, welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Skeindeer. And there's also a Ravelry group called Skeindeer Knits where we currently have a knit along. So we are knitting my Selbu Mitten pattern. So for those of you new to this channel, I'm just going to quickly mention I designed a mitten pattern initially because I was asked to host a Norwegian colourwork class in London, and I was like, well, I need a pattern for it. I decided a mitten is basically the quickest way we could like cover colourwork and actually have something finished at the end of it. And then eventually I wrote it up as a pattern, and the pattern ended up being part of a mitten kit that I sold on Etsy. And when I figured, well, people bought the kits, I'm guessing they're gonna knit it, so I started a knit along, and just kind of snowballed into this CAL that we now have running. I say we, that's the royal we. I keep doing that a lot. But yes, do not despair if you don't have the kit. Lots of people don't, they just got the pattern off of Ravelry and choose whichever yarn they prefer. As ever, I will recommend getting a DK pure wool, non-superwash, non-merino, but you are of course welcome to use whatever you want. And I have made a pair in merino and they are absolutely delicious to wear, so I mean, you can't really go wrong. I'm just saying what will give you the best result. And yeah, it's just super cool to see what everybody's making in that CAL now, and see just all those mittens. I can't believe you guys, many of you are doing this for the very first time, making colourwork and colourwork mittens. They look super professional and I'm very impressed. But yeah, link to all of that stuff down below. Anyway, before we get into the rest of the things, I just want to thank Grace of Babbles Travelling Yarn for giving me a lovely shout out the other day. That was just super nice, and I was like gushing and linked it to my boyfriend. I was like hee hee hee. So thank you so much, and thank you in general, Grace, for just being super lovely and being excited with me about Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Yes, I'm excited. I'm thinking about the festival every day and just like gushing about it online, and people think I'm crazy, and I'm not going to argue against that. So anyway, check out Grace's channel. It's, as I said, Babbles Travelling Yarn, and yeah, she's just the right amount of crazy, and what more could you want, really? Yesterday or last night, I'm not quite sure, maybe I went to bed at the right hour, but somewhere around that time frame we reached 1,000 subscribers, and now we are well above that already, which is super cool. So it only makes sense that we should be doing a giveaway. So I've been trying to like think through, okay, what can I part with? What do I have that is amazing but that I know that I'm not gonna use? And well, there are some goodies, there are some really good stuff, and I'm kind of crazy for giving this away, but I wanna give something to all of you for subscribing, to be honest, because it's just really uplifting to have that kind of support when I'm doing this. I mean, I've been doing it regardless, but still. So I want to have something that's actually really good, at least for one of you, because I can't give stuff to all of you, so like, okay. So yeah, let me just show you what I have selected. So first up, we have 2 skeins of Koigumori, and I don't know if you know about Koigumori, but it's kind of like 50-50 silk and merino. I'm just gonna read off the label just to get everything right. 50% merino wool, 50% mulberry silk. It has per skein 50 grams, 185 yards and 169 meters. So either whatever measurement you prefer, and same thing with the other, of course. So they're coming across a bit faded here, but they are a very distinct light blue. They're more blue than not, and sort of mixed with other colors, and now they look a bit wretched because they've been untwisted and twisted back into their hanks for a couple of times. And it's really silky, so like keeping them in this shape is actually like a bit of a challenge, because it just wants to drape and be silky. So that's something I'm gonna give away, and it's like, this yarn is like at a price level where I know I'm not gonna buy it again, so this is like forever goodbye, Koigumori, forever goodbye. So yeah, I want to give this away to a lucky winner, along with Terra of the Fiber Company. I don't know if you can see this up close. They're probably both upside down. Of course they are. So there we are. So these normally come in 100 gram skeins, but they're actually 2 50 gram skeins. I'm gonna double check this. 50 grams, 98 yards. Doesn't say meters here, I'm afraid. It's worsted weight, I would argue, given the meterage or yardage. 40% baby alpaca, 40% wool and 20% silk. So you can't really go wrong in terms of softness with this yarn. And I was so happy when I got this one because it's my color. This is my color by definition. And I'm like, wow, why am I giving this away? But you know, I got like a fair amount of yarn, let's be real, and there's lots of things I'm gonna knit up before this, and by that time this is gonna be fairly old, and I don't want this to get old on my shelf. I mean, not that yarn comes with an expiration date, but you know, it feels better when yarn is fresh in your stash, you know what I mean? So I just want to show you these up close. The light blue has some bits of pink in it, not much, but just enough, and that really goes well with this burgundy here. I think alone it will be a bit odd, but together I think these could make great wonders. So these are the yarns that will be given away, and they're both at a pretty impressive price range. So as I said, it's probably forever goodbye for these yarns and me. So take care of them, you lucky winner. And another thing I want to give away is this Noro pattern book. I'm just gonna show you the backside to give you an idea of the patterns in here. And this book was donated to me by a friend of mine, Carmen, who is setting up the best knitting meetup in London. There are tons of knitting meetups in London that are associated with different shops, so different yarn shops. They have their own knit nights, either weekly or monthly, and they're all good fun. But Carmen's she just started this from scratch a while ago, and decided to just gather knitters from all over London to Swiss Cottage, and every other Saturday we sit and knit from 2 to 5 o'clock in Swiss Cottage. You can find this meetup on meetup.com, and anyone's welcome. It's free, generously Carmen's paying all the meetup fees. It's just really impressive what she's got started, and I highly recommend going there if you're ever in London and you want to meet a bunch of knitters. And the thing that sets this meetup apart from the other shop knit nights is, well, there's no buying pressure. There isn't necessarily in the shop either, but you get a completely different range of knitters. You get people who knit with anything from the finest silk to acrylics and all the stuff in between, and there's like very little yarn snobbery there. Like anything goes, any skill level. It's just so refreshing, and we have a wide age range and nice mix of gender from time to time as well. But like we have from 20 to, I'm not gonna try measuring how the oldest are, but like we got retired people. And yeah, I really love that meetup, and it's like if I only had to go to one, that would probably be the one I'd go to, even though it's on the other side of London from where I'm from. So yes, that is Noro Flowers. Show you the patterns that you can get here one more time. So I think it's really neat actually. I want to talk about these patterns because, well, they look like they would only work with Noro yarns, but I beg to differ. I think you could use any yarn that you could reach the same gauge with, and you could actually plot in whatever texture, whatever color work or lace or whatever you want to add. So if you have like a basic stitch reference book, you could just put that in here and make something very unique. So I mean, that's what I would have done if I was to keep this, but I'm giving this away to a lucky winner. So on top of these 4 skeins and this booklet, I'm going to give the winner a loop bag, because I got plenty of these, and this is the one that I have worn not at all really. It's just a bit wrinkly because of how I stored it, but it's perfectly nice and unused. So that's it. That's what I'm gonna give away to the lucky winner. And now I'm trying to think of how to best do this. I am not very good at giveaways, and I'm like thinking, well, what's the most convenient way? And I know most people do group giveaways, but I think, why not do it the way we did at the 500 subscribers giveaway? What I did then was having people just commenting under my video, answering a prompt, and that was a ticket. Had you done that, you could also be eligible for a second ticket, so having a double chance of winning if you promoted my channel somewhere. So I think we will still do that. Like, I don't know how you feel, but I'm not super keen on when various people on Instagram do giveaways and they say, in order to win you have to tag 5 friends and repost this picture that I made. And I'm like, some people, I don't, but some people try to build up a certain aesthetics in their Instagram account, their feed. It has a certain look to them, maybe plain white and some knitted stuff on a table. Maybe they do just wooden and kind of rustic looking pictures, and they try to have that aesthetic throughout, so that when you first visit their Instagram page, it has that feel throughout, and you don't want to disrupt that with someone telling you to repost. And the same thing when you have to tag your friends in a post. Your friends probably just gonna experience that as spam. I feel like I'm bothering my friends when I do that. I don't mind getting that myself when people tag me in a contest. I'm like, thank you for letting me know. But I can see why some people might be hesitant about that, because I certainly am when I'm taking part. So I want you to, for the second ticket, to kind of, it's voluntary, like the only thing you need to do is leave a comment below, and I have a prompt for that, just hang on for that. But for the second ticket, the only thing you really need to do is just promote this channel one way that you prefer. So if you want to post an Instagram post, you can do that with whatever picture you want to use, filters, etc., to fit your Instagram aesthetic, if that's how you choose to do it. You could also link to me somewhere, maybe in a forum or on YouTube. I don't know, I don't think you can link in a YouTube comment, but you can certainly give me a shout out in a video if you do that. I would just want it to be somewhere permanent, so not like a Instagram story or a Snapchat post or a stream, somewhere where people can retrieve it, because I need to be able to retrieve it if I'm gonna test that you have done this. So let's just clarify these rules. In order to be in the draw for this prize, you need to leave a comment here below on YouTube telling me where you're at with color work, what you've done, what you've not done, or what you wish to do, or if you never tried it, or if you want to try it and why. And just, it's very open. I just want you to talk about you and color work knitting. Maybe you've done it for years, maybe you've never done it. Like, just tell me, short story, I'd just love to hear it. That's what you need to do to win. That's the only thing you have to do. And the optional bit, if you want to have a double chance of winning, is to promote this podcast. And I've said it just now, you can do that in the way that suits you the most, as long as it's a sort of permanent post, like a Instagram photo, a forum post, a YouTube video shout out. I'm sure there are lots of other ways that I haven't thought about. It's not set in stone. I kind of want that to be something that comes from somewhere genuine, which is why I'm leaving it optional, because it would really help me, but I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to feel like you have to do it just to be in the prize draw. I want it to be something that comes from, I don't know, a place in your heart where you wish to promote this channel. And if you don't have to. You are still more than welcome to just post a comment below. So hopefully that's fine with you guys. So let's move on. I'm gonna write the rules, I think, in the show notes, so that if you found this very disconnected, because sometimes it's difficult to keep track of all the rules and you want to make sure you get everything right before you post, I'm gonna write it in the show notes below and in the Ravelry forum. So yes. So I seem to kind of have started this series that I'm doing in this podcast, somewhere in between. I'm not doing sections yet. I might, if that's something you like to have, but one thing I'm going to try to do on a regular basis is to recommend a designer. And so the second designer I want to recommend, last time I recommended Wenche Roald, who's a Ravelry designer. And this time I want to recommend Nina Granlund-Sæther. The reason I decided to mention her in this episode, because she's on my spreadsheet of the designers I want to mention from now on. The reason why I'm mentioning her now is because someone let me know that her mitten book, this one, is going to be available in English this year, probably the coming months. It's all over Amazon right now. It's called Mittens from Norway. This is mittens from Norway, in the shape of Norway. I'll get back to this. So I thought, let's just get everybody onto this and focus and be aware that this amazing book is going to be available for you. So Nina got my attention through many forums all at once ages ago. So I was browsing through my aunt's knitting books. She's got a lovely collection of books, and I was just looking through them to see, you know, which books I might be interested in buying, etc. And she's got this book called just Pillows and Cushions, I think it's called in English, and I think it's called Pillow Party in Norwegian. And generally I'm not a pillow knitter, like I got that pillow, but generally just not something that I do. But there's one pillow that's just hilarious, and it's really cool. Like, she actually managed to put a Marius pattern in her own book, which is pretty impressive because that's difficult, but it's such a cool pattern. I think it's called fornicating deer as a Ravelry chart, and she's just put the whole thing together as a pillow, and it's just really funny. I remember seeing that actually in a news article where there was this old lady holding this up, and she was like, I had no idea what I've knitted until it was done, and now I made this pillow. And I'm like, ooh. I don't know if that was like, but yeah, it's a fun book if you want to like have something for your home. So that's kind of where it started. Whereas at the same time, I also followed her blog, and she's got a lovely blog where she talks about knitting in terms of traditions and techniques and the sort of language that we use and folk costumes. It really covers a broad spectrum. It's pretty much all right up my alley. I thought it was really interesting, this post she did a couple of months ago, maybe a year, I don't know, about language, the language we use in Norway about our knitting, and how that is changing now that knitting is a more international thing. It's more involved with Ravelry and English patterns, and it's like, for instance, people now refer to these Latvian braids as Latvian braids in Norwegian, whereas we've done those braids for ages and they're called tveban, and now we're suddenly referring to them as Latvian, even though like they belong to everybody, kind of. I mean, it's just interesting. I'm not saying it's either right or wrong, it's just kind of nice to know, because if we change the names of something to belong to a certain region, we are kind of reconstructing history and getting it wrong. It's kind of similar to when I say don't call stuff that isn't from the Faroe Isles Faroe Island knitting. You just kind of don't want to get these things wrong, because I really think it's important to accurately represent craft history, because it historically hasn't been, because it's just been seen as women's craft. Something I kind of touched on in the last episode as well, with sort of legal case of the Marius pattern. So I think it's just really important that we keep that in mind. And I've noticed that lately as well. I mean, this was not mentioned in her post, I was just thinking it. Brioche is a big thing, and it's sort of being referred to as brioche in Norway. But we've had brioche for a couple of decades now, and it's been called patentstrikk, so patent knit. I don't know why. And then fisherman's rib is half patent, half patent. It's difficult to translate, but now people are like, oh, I'm knitting brioche, and I'm like, yeah, I have a pattern from the 50s that is full on brioche. So I'm not saying it's from Norway, actually. It's not. It doesn't belong to any region, which is pretty neat, actually. But that's just, I think, is interesting, and it's worth noting and being aware of. So yeah, that was just like one of the things in her blog that kind of made me think. And I shouldn't talk more about that blog now, because it's in Norwegian, so you're probably not going to get much pleasure out of it if you're not Norwegian. But let's talk about this book that's going to be translated into English, because it's just, let's just have a close-up of all these mittens, shall we? Am I showing you any mittens now? I just have to. Okay, so here's Nina, and I've already made these mittens on the front. I made them a bit too small for me. I don't know if I have abnormally long fingers or what have you, but they've been gifted to a friend's grandma, so it's all good. I just want to show you some of these. Oh, I love these. And these mittens, they have this really cool stitch I've never tried. She made a YouTube video demonstrating it in Norwegian. And these mittens, you guys, I have been so set on making these mittens for such a long time. I love this yellow, even though I never knit with yellow. And I have this skein right here that I want to use. But now I'm like asking myself, is it actually going to be enough with one skein of vinyl? Maybe not. It doesn't specify actually meterage, it just says what yarn you need. And what's really cool about this book is, well, it's very true to tradition. And a lot of patterns have been recreated from long traditions. She does very often just recommend baby merino, just saying like, okay, if you want to use baby merino, just go ahead. Like, there's Dale baby merino and others, and it's like, that's fine, and that's pretty good to know. I think you, as I always say, you get the best effects with a pure sticky wool, but merino, which is less glossy and knit at a fairly tight gauge, is actually just fine. Ow. So it's really, oh, you guys should be all over this book when it gets published in English. I am so happy this is the case. And so yeah, that's my designer recommendation for today. And you can actually find Nina on Instagram, and links to just about everything I've said will be in the show notes. That will be here under my YouTube video and on Ravelry in the group. And I seem to make it a habit of also talking about podcasts that I am enjoying now. But I have already mentioned Grace's podcast, but I also want to mention Eva of The Charm of It. And she was one of the podcasters that I had discovered before I started my own podcast. I was just it's really difficult to find knitting podcasts if you don't know where to begin. And I was just googling around knitting podcasts literally, and I was going through YouTube and I came across her channel, which is not difficult because she's got beautiful captions for the sort of thumbnail of her videos, and it's really representative of the stuff that she makes and the kind of focus that she has on knitting, and it's very detailed oriented, and that's what I really love. I really love getting hung up on, you know, every little stitch, you know, bind off and cast on increases and decreases, and really getting everything really neat and right. And I think she's got a beautiful like color palette in the stuff that she makes, and she's got the most adorable pets. I mean, that dog Thistle, that little face and that little fluff, and so yeah, you should definitely check out her channel if you haven't. I'm sure you have, because she's been around the block for way longer than I have, and just, yeah, everything she makes is super, super pretty and perfect, and has this very thorough, lovely aesthetic to it. And that's, as you may have noticed, is something I really appreciate in a podcast. So do check out her podcast. Oh, I'm just really full of recommendations today, so I'm not going to stop until I mention this Instagram account, which is Birgit. And I came across his account when I'm taking part in the Yarn Love Challenge. And if you don't know what Yarn Love Challenge is, it's just you post a picture on Instagram every day in response to a cue. So for instance, today the cue was family, and I just chose to post a picture of my 3 dogs in their lovely little jumpers. Quick little picture here. And when I was browsing through what other people have been posting for this challenge, I found Birgit's account, and he makes ridiculously impressive stuff, and it's largely Norwegian, largely Selbu knit inspired and similar, and it's just so impressive, and I love everything that's posted there, literally. So yeah, that's just something I think everybody should jump on and just follow and like everything and go crazy, because it's just really, really amazing stuff. I don't really have any words for that. It's just, you guys need to be aware. Now it's about time we talk about what I'm actually knitting, because that's supposed to be the focus of this podcast, isn't it? Or vlog. I don't know why we call these podcasts. Like, podcast is by definition audio, yet we call them video podcasts. And I guess that's the thing, like, things change definition all the time, so I guess that's fine. But in this podcast I like to focus on what I'm knitting. But you know, a couple episodes ago I called it castanitis because I just started so many projects, and that means I'm not really finishing anything. So I'm not finished anything for this week, I'm sorry. I have a half finished object that I can't show you because I want this to be a surprise when it's launched. I have a little pattern project in mind, and I don't want to show you before it's ready, and I don't want to tell you what it is, but I think it will be interesting. I just have to be really efficient about it, and that's difficult given how many works in progress I already have. But I do want to talk about the yarn I've used for one of these things, and this, it's Finkoff yarn. It's a German pure wool. It's actually merino, but if you ever tried German merino wool before, you will know that it's really rustic. I mean, you would not think that this was merino if all you've done with merino is like your usual baby merino, Madeline Tosh, etc. So this is really rustic, crunchy, sticky, and I love it. I really do. I've enjoyed knitting with this, and I love just bringing this around and having this pile of sheepy wool. And I got this from Dana, a German viewer and friend of the podcast. I'm very grateful. I have lots of other skeins in different colours. Yeah, I just wanted to mention what I've been using because I really do recommend it. It's a sport weight pure wool. Don't remember off the top of my head the meterage, but I'm going to link to the actual yarn I'm using. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But a project that I can show you because I already have, it's also a future pattern, and that's my Fair Isle socks. So I've been trying to get inspired by Fair Isle charts, traditional charts used in the Fair Isles, putting them on a sock. And I made a pair of these for my friend for Christmas, my friend Christy. She got a pair in sort of burgundy, various colours. I showed you just about every episode that I've been working on these socks. And I'm just on sock 1. But I'm trying to test this pattern out in a different colour scheme, just so that I have more pictures to show you when the pattern goes up. And I have some lovely test knitters working on it as well. So I've already seen 3 different color schemes for it, and they all look pretty awesome. So I'm just so excited to be able to show you this. And there's a really cool feature with this pattern that I'm not going to reveal yet, but I'm just keeping you in the loop as to like where we're at, because basically once me and the test knitters are done with this, that's when the pattern goes up. When we have good pictures to publish along with the pattern itself, then you know, that's it. So I've tried something really cool with this. Not cool, but like I wanted to try and see how Magic Loop differs, because I've been telling you how I solve my float issues with Magic Loop by, you know, if I have finished just these stitches, I keep them on the needle when I pull the cable out. So I'm knitting with these still on here. Hopefully that made sense. I've gone over this a few times, and when I do that, it looks super nice and smooth in the transition between one needle and the other, because there isn't really any one needle here and one needle here. It's just kind of moves around, it gets skewed, and so you need to keep track of your front and back of your sock yourself. But it looks super smooth. There's no like join here or anything, whereas in the foot I did not do this, just to see how it differs, hoping it will block out. And you can see there is a very distinct fold here. It kind of bends a little, because it's really hard to make sure that your floats are right if you don't do what I'm doing here. So that's like how that differs for me. So hopefully you see like the benefit of transferring some stitches from one needle to the working needle, if that made sense, when you're doing color work. I mean, you don't have to. If you feel like you've got control of what you're knitting without doing that, it's fine, but it could solve a problem that I know many people have. So yeah, that's the one last look of these before I'm, like, I've only got this much left before I'm doing the rib. Trying to make the other sock and get a good picture. If I'm really slow, would you guys be okay if I just had a picture of one sock? Like, they've been thoroughly test knitted and I'm making this pair for the second time. Is it really tricky to just publish a pattern with one sock? I should do it properly, shouldn't I? The pattern is all good. I've foolproofed it. I've gone over the heels so many times because I made the initial pair in the Fish Lips Kiss heel and I can't legally put that in the pattern, so I've been googling around for German short rose heel, and there were so many ways of doing it, and most of the tutorials and videos I can find, they in the middle of the heel they knit the whole sock in the round so that you get a stripe, which is a terrible idea if you're doing a contrast heel, unless of course you want that effect, which I know some do. Some patterns incorporate that, but I'm not, so I don't want that. And I've been trying to find out how to best, I guess, not do that without copying the Fish Lips Kiss heel, because I'm not allowed to do that either. And I've found a way, and it's working. You do have to pick up stitches on the side, which I've seen many do anyway, so, and it's fine. I put it away. I'm going to show you. Instead of talking, I should just show you. So this is the join, and I think that's absolutely fine. I picked up a stitch here from, based on stitches on above and below. Same thing on the other side. It's absolutely fine. There's no hole, no gap whatsoever, so I'm very happy about having developed this heel. Sent out the update to all of my test knitters, and yeah, feeling very confident about this pattern, which is lovely, because in the past I guess I haven't, even though I didn't have any reason to be nervous. Now I've been knitting on my Snowmelt shawl. I'm going to show you, so if you're not finished Q2 by now, I'm underway there, so I'm going to show you both Q1 and Q2. So look away, open a different window on your computer if you don't want to see this. I will tell you when I'm putting it away. So here we go, I'm going to show you. So some of you might remember I had to rip this out. I showed you last time how it looked, and it was on half needle size bigger than what I currently have, and I think that makes a world of a difference when you're knitting with single ply merinos, because they stretch out, they grow, and they don't go back because there's no twist, there's no bounce to it. So I knitted the whole of Q1 again on a half needle size smaller, and I should have realized this because I knitted a shawl by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade before, and we seem to have the same tension, so I should have just remembered that and stuck to the same needle size that she did. Oh, well, there you go. You should swatch and block the swatch really, but you know, who's got time for that? And I did swatch actually the second time around, and the swatch does not correspond to anything. That's just my curse. Swatches for me, they do their own thing, they're never the same as my project. It's really frustrating, but what are you gonna do? So here you can see Q2 happening. I'm not finished yet. I'm like 2/3 done with Q2. So there's some lace going on here. Very neat little pattern happening. And I love just the mix of these 3 tones of La Bien-Aimée yarn. We're working on my French now, you guys. Doing it for you. So yeah, you get the idea. I think it's a really nice experience so far. I think the pattern support is really great. People supporting each other on the Ravelry group, and I'm having a lot of fun making it. I think it's very pleasant. I am really grateful that Helen recommended higher needles, because I had tried higher needles before. I had tried these, what are they called, 30cm circulars, and they seem very average. I feel like I covered this in the last episode, but anyway. But when I got the proper lacy ones, I'm like, yeah. But of course, when I had to go down a needle size, I didn't have that size in higher, so I had to order more. And yeah, we'll get back to that into acquisitions. Before we get into acquisitions though, I kind of want to give some more thoughts I have about my Find Your Fade. I guess it seemed to have angered a few individuals last time. I got some reactions, and I like, in this channel I'm gonna give my honest opinions about my experience with knitting. I'm not just gonna have an opinion for the sake of having an opinion. I'm just gonna tell you what I'm thinking. I might not say this is true and this is false, but I'm just saying, like, not my pattern. I love the yarn, but I'm not sure if it's worthy of the pattern. And now I'm thinking, like, it's funny, when I made the video I was really unsure, and then during the day I was like, I'm definitely gonna rip it out. And then later when I went to Loop and I bought the shawl there, and they love a big shawl, then it's just like, go there. They styled it on me and it's like, yeah, it looks really neat now. How can I rip this out? It looks so striking, but I'm still not loving it, and I still have mixed feelings about it. So I'm just gonna let it sit in the shawl, try wearing it on a few occasions, see how I like it. And if I don't, and if I find the perfect shawl for it, I might frog it and use my yarn for that. I'm just not gonna stress about it really. And so I guess what I want to say to people who have like bad reactions to when I speak my mind about a pattern that's really trendy right now, that's just what I'm gonna do. I'm not going to sugarcoat something when I'm not a fan. I'm not gonna bash something either, because I know that behind every pattern and every yarn and every tool there is people who've tried to make the best thing that they can, and I have no criticism over the Find Your Fade pattern. It's just, there is no pattern in the world that's for everybody, and that's fine. And you could just say, I'd like to knit these things, so I didn't like that. Like, I don't see a problem with that. And I think maybe if you have some thoughts about the shawl that I did not express, or that you disagree with, I'd be happy to have a conversation. I think that's more fruitful than people just being like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's fine. Like, most people seem to be happy that I spoke my mind about it, and I know other much bigger podcasters than me have expressed similar thoughts and feelings, and that's fine. I mean, some are getting a fade shawl and they love it, and I think this shawl is going to start a very big fade trend, and we're kind of seeing it already, and we're seeing in the Snowmelt shawl even that gradients is in vogue. I think we're going to have a lot of fading gradient shawls in the near future. It's going to be a huge thing, and if I see a shawl then that I want to make, I think I will jump on that bandwagon. We'll see how that goes. Because I really love the yarn, and I'm gonna go to Edinburgh Yarn Festival where the dyers will be, so I'd rather not just buy the same skeins again, because they were not cheap. So if I have something in mind, and I've also been looking into shawl shapes, because I have some feelings about shawl shapes. I feel like a lot of people are designing their shawls in maybe the most simple constructions that is available, which is increasing on the sides and calling it crescent shape, and it's more banana shaped, which is fine if that's what it's supposed to be, but that's not what I wanted. So again, no criticism of the pattern, it's just me kind of thinking, oh, crescent shape, yeah, that would be nice. And then it's like, this blocks out nice, but then with the wear it's more like a banana, you know, banana shape. So I've been looking through the actual construction methods that I prefer, and I think more of a half pie shawl or a triangle shawl or something like that. Even a pie shawl, I wouldn't mind doing a pie shawl. Apparently they're not as difficult as people made it out to be. And actually the Snowmelt, sorry you guys, those of you are not looking because of the shawl, I put that away, sorry I didn't mention, oh god. Yeah, the Snowmelt shawl is a half pie shawl, as they're called, which I think is really amusing. And my boyfriend, who's a mathematician, pointed this out to me and said, well, technically that's a pie shawl, and the full-on circles, they are double pie shawls, because you need to times pi times 2 for having a full circle. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So we're just mislabeling everything, aren't we? So a half pie shawl is an actual pie shawl, and a what we call pie shawl is a double pie shawl. Whoa. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just realizing that, you know, the different constructions is kind of what leads to the shape that you want, more so than blocking, because blocking kind of wears out a bit. So I think I want to look into that and make sure that I'm getting the shape that I want before I start knitting, which in hindsight seems very obvious. So yes, we are in acquisitions now. And I told you about my slight obsession with higher needles, because I thought higher is alright, yeah, they're sharp. You know, I thought they were kind of comparable to Addies, and they kind of are, but they're just so lovely and light, and there's just something that really appeals to me with them. Maybe it's because they are pointy, but they don't break my skin, because I poke my finger into the needle all the time, so that's just good. So I got an interchangeable kit. Look at that. And this is really amusing. I got these from a shop that the Higher Europe website recommended to me. So they're the wholesalers, and they told me, you know, Brownberry Yarns are the ones that are selling these in Europe, and that's where you can get these. But what I found a bit amusing, and this is a bit cheeky of me to mention maybe, but I was really looking into the full set with all the needle sizes, and it's £160. I shouldn't be spending that kind of money just before Edinburgh or ever. And so I was like, well, maybe I just get the smaller sizes, because let's be real, that's the sizes that I will be using. So I looked into that, and I was like, well, if I buy them separately, I can buy the other one later. How much is that going to be more? It's actually less. So this one is £60. So if you get this one for £60 and the larger set for £60, you're paying £120. You do get more extra stuff with the full-on set, but not for the value of £40, you don't. So I don't know why the full set is 180 when you only get one bag, and here you would get two if you bought them separately. So something to keep in mind if you are looking into this. And here are my needles, and I love this bag, I really do. I mean, it's got room for all my needles, and the needles are, as opposed to my Knit Pro Novas, these are actually labelled. So far the label has not gone off. Like, I mean, if you look at these, it will say, it's not going to focus, but here the size of the needle is written. So it's higher sharp, 7 US, 4.5mm, age 20. Whatever, is that like Asian size? I don't know. So I got the 5-inch one because I like a bit of length on my needles. I know that will restrict my use for these on short circumference. But what I did find surprising is that they still include a cable for the short circumference, even if you're getting the longer needles, even though you can't use that cable with these needles. I thought that was a bit strange. I'd rather have more 80 centimeters 32-inch needle cables. But there you go. So yeah, the number of cables included are a bit restricted, so I'll have to get more of those, which is kind of annoying because they're not super cheap. But... and there's even a little pouch at the back here. There's a pouch inside for my cables, but it's also on the back. So I've been very good and not buying any yarn this week, but I've still acquired some yarn, and I was proper confused, and this all happened yesterday. So I was still at home a bit late because I had a hospital appointment, and I went back home, and I get an email from work saying that there's a parcel waiting for me in the office. And I thought, okay, that's probably the yarn swap I'm doing with this Australian viewer of the podcast. Hello, Angela. And because I gave her my work address because it's easier for me to get parcels from there. I also find a parcel with yarn from Australia in my mailbox at home. So I'm just really confused now. Turns out this is a belated birthday gift from Tricia from Australia. So that was completely unexpected. And she just got my address from the Mitten kits. So she got herself a kit for her own birthday and then got me this present, and that was just super lovely. And I was like, I'm getting 2 shipments from Australia, and they have completely different breeds, and I want to talk about their Polwarth sheep. But let's just go through what I got. I'm really sorry about my voice today. I've been coughing all morning. I'm not sure why. I don't have a cold or anything. It's just a bit meh. So first thing I see is this, which is an amazing color. Someone knows my color scheme, and I was like squishing and squishing this, and I'm like, I can't figure out what fiber this is. And I was like, it's kind of ropey, but it's certainly not acrylic. It seems like a proper wool fiber, but it's still like hard. And I'm like, hang on, this kind of ropey effect you only get with hand spun, don't you? And I think this is hand spun. Just like, that's a lot of work. If this is hand spun, I'm like very intimidated by this little baby. So thank you. And Trisha, I don't know who you are really. Like, the only way I could thank you is just to send you a letter, because I have your address, but I don't know who you are on Ravelry or anywhere. So if you could, like, I don't know, get back to me so I can thank you, that would be lovely. Oh, look at that. Oh god. And I also got a mini, and this is so soft. It has to be like pure cashmere or something. I don't it says sock yarn swappers, red 40 yard swap, handmaiden. So I guess it's handmaiden yarn. Struggling a bit with the focus today, but there we are. So this is gonna be fed to my blanket. And then she got these two skeins, and she got them from the people who produce this yarn, and apparently they are the descendants of the people who first developed the Polwarth sheep. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, so I'm writing it here just in case. But this sheep is a blend of this sheep called Lincoln sheep and this other sheep called Merino. And really, the result is just something that puts Merino to shame. It is so soft but still woolly. It's incredible. I love this wool. And I just want to tell you about like some information. It's tan dye Polwarth wool, 4-ply natural. They're both natural, they're just different shades of natural. They weigh 45 grams and they have 158 meters, which I think is really good. I love that, I really do. So tan dye, you can order from them. Hopefully they ship internationally, they really should. So this is absolutely lovely, and thank you so much, Trisha. So that was what I got in the mailbox at home, but out of pure curiosity and also knowing that I was going to record today, yesterday I went to work just for the sole purpose of picking up this parcel in the middle of the day, and I did also get to attend a few things at work that was going to happen, so that was probably win-win really. And it was just this pile of yarn, and I'm going to go through it sequentially just so that you can get to know these babies. So first of all, we have cozy wool, and this is just a nice worsted weight, I guess, pure wool, non-superwash. It's got a high pussy hat potential, this yarn. I already have a pussy hat, but if I know anyone who I guess wants one and doesn't knit, that would be awesome. Yeah, thank you. It's a really cool, vibrant, like magenta, how do you say that? Pink. So yeah, it's really nice, and I don't have that much yarn that's thicker than fingering and sport weight, to be honest, so that's really cool. And then I got these, which is like, so this is Silana yarn. Kauri, I don't know, is this Maori? I can't, that's not a language that makes any sense to me, so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. So it's 60% fine New Zealand merino, 30% brushtail possum, and 10% mulberry silk. And I'm like, possum yarn? Really? I'm thinking mitts, like lacy or cabled mitts. Don't know. I'm just... So yeah, let's give you the specs. It's worsted weight, 50 grams, 86 meters or 94 yards, 20 stitches over 10 centimeters ideally, which I think, yeah, it's gonna be really cool. Lacy mitt, I imagine. And thank you so much. I think, and thank you for getting me two. I find it really difficult sometimes to work with just one skein of yarn, so like having two is actually making me more confident that I have enough for whatever I choose to make with these. I'm super grateful. I mean, possum, I mean, that's, oh. And then we have this yarn. Oh, can I just have this as my pillow like this forever? It is so soft and squishy. It, like I said, Australian polwarth yarn puts merino to shame. It's just out of this world. Because, okay, thing about merino, I feel like I've talked about it being glossy, and it's like if you drop a water on some merino yarn, I feel like it's just gonna peel off. If you did this, it would just soak in. I feel like that's how I can adequately describe the difference between that, because this is soft in a very, very woolly way. So this is Pirate Pearl yarn, and she's a dyer local to Angela. Let's just talk about the polwarth, because guys, if you ever go anywhere near Australia, I mean, I don't know if there's anywhere near Australia because it's an island, but you know what I mean. If you ever go there, get your hand on this kind of yarn, honestly. So Pirate Pearl yarns, hand dyed and solo dried in the harbour town of Newcastle, Australia, by Katarina Kelvich. And their colourway is called Blunderboss, I think, and it's all polwarth. It's a 4-ply yarn of 150 grams with 530 meters. Oh, and this colour, this is my colour, and it's not actually completely solid. I'm not sure where I best can show you because it's quite bright today, so it's hard to, like, in some places it's, the colour is a bit darker than at this place. These two, you might be able to see the difference, and that is just enough to keep me a bit interested. So a bit interested, very interested. I love this, I love this. And I'm thinking these go together, and they're the same breed. And if you follow me for a while, you might know about my slightly unsupported anxiety of mixing fibers. I like to knit with the same base for the whole project. That's just me. But these are all polwarth, and they are similar weight and could go great together. And I have some thoughts and ideas for this. And so yeah, I really can't express how grateful I am enough. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much. So this video's gone on for long enough, and I usually like to finish off my videos with a bit of a conversation about a topic, any topic. If you find that this video has just gone on for long enough and you just want to leave and you're done, I'm done. I've covered what I've acquired, what I've knitted, CALs and practical information. So it's fine if you like want to trail off now. But I want to have a little conversation about yarn snobbery, because I hear a lot of people being frustrated over it. Nobody wants to own up to being a yarn snob, but we all see it around us, you know. People are being very picky about their yarns, and I think, I don't know how I feel like I'm a self-imposed yarn snob. I mean, on one hand, I'm happy to knit with just about any brand, but at the same time, I will only allow myself certain fibers. I would not knit acrylics for myself, but I'm not like gonna give people the ugly stare, you know, if someone's making something with acrylics. Like, you do what you want. I think the problem is not yarn snobbery. The problem is not minding your own business what other people choose to knit with. You can recommend if you're being asked, but if someone says, I'm having problems with this project and I'm using this acrylic, don't answer by saying, what do you expect, you're working with acrylic? You know, there's something with the tone there. I think you need to say, well, actually, you know, I can see why you would choose acrylic because it's easier to wash, it's affordable, and it's not very scratchy. But have you considered that you can't block out, so if you have any unevenness in your stitching, in your knitting, in your stitches, then you can't block it. I don't know about you, but I have a few acrylic jumpers, etc., and when I take them out of the washer, they feel almost dry. They don't suck in all the water the way a animal fiber does, so you can't block out your mistakes because it's just not going to have that effect with water. And also the way it wears is kind of nasty, so that's kind of why I don't prefer to use it. And also I don't think it breathes very well. I feel like it's like wearing plastic. So I think that's how you need to approach yarn. If you see someone having problems with acrylic and they don't get why, you can tell them these things. And if you're thinking yourself about using acrylics, just weigh the pros and cons. It's not an evil yarn, you know, it's perfectly legit to use given the pros and cons. I listed 3 pros and cons now, and you just go like, yeah, it's affordable, but it doesn't look out, you know? Like, there are like pros and cons here, and that's how you need to approach yarn, and that's how I think we should approach any fiber. So, and that's kind of how I feel about yarn snobbery as well. I mean, some brands are better in terms of ethics, But let's not assume that we are being more ethical just because we're paying more. Sometimes expensive yarns are just as unethical as the really cheap ones. And sometimes some people are able to make really cheap yarn even though it's still ethical. Like, that's not the same thing. So unless you're actually actively focusing on where your yarn is coming from and how it's being produced, I would be careful about being judgmental of people who choose to knit with more affordable brands. I do really encourage that people do pay attention to where the yarn is sourced from and how, but I'm not sure if that's what's going on now. And I guess what I wanted to say is yarn snobbery, it's fine if you are imposing that on yourself, you do what you want, but be mindful of how, I guess, we approach other people, and just like have a more pros and cons approach to yarn, more so than just being acrylic, cotton, cheap yarn, you know? And I want to add to that and say that, you know, most of the time I have been a budget knitter. I've been allowing myself a lot more the past year, but most of the time I have knitted with drops yarn and a lot of affordable Norwegian brands, and I thought I'd just go through my top favorites on Ravelry and just tell you how much they cost me to make. Now, I made this list just before I posted my fade shawl, and now that's risen in favorites, so I'm not going to include that. Obviously that was expensive, but it's just not part of the list and when I calculated the prices, so I'm just going to go through this list. So the first thing, the one that's way at the top, is my TARDIS Marius, and this is something I designed myself when I put together Kate Davis's Paper Dolls jumper with the TARDIS pattern that's on free on Ravelry, and I just mixed it with what I know and love of the Marius pattern. And the yarn cost me £33. It probably even cost me less because I got it on sale, but the initial price is £33. That's using Sandnes Sisu, and you can get that on SKD yarns, and it's fairly affordable there as well. And second to that is Nora's dress. I call it Nora's dress because it's for my friend's baby Nora, and it cost me £12. Even it was actually just leftover yarn from a jumper that I never finished. I still have enough yarn to finish it, but I realized I had plenty, so I made the dress based on that, and it's drops cotton merino, and you can get that at Love Knitting and Wool Warehouse at least. It's pretty available everywhere. And at a slightly higher price there is my Marius dress, which I paid £74 for, and I bought way more yarn than I actually needed. I've got plenty of skeins left still back in Norway. I used Sandnes Duo, which is a merino cotton blend, very similar to Drops Cotton Merino. I think £74 for a dress is actually pretty good. There's a lot of meterage going into that, so I wanted to include that anyway. And then we have my snowflake socks. I estimate that I paid £10 for these. I bought two Regia skeins, two 50-gram skeins when I was in Scotland last time I went to Edinburgh. I only had 2 hours to just walk around while my friend was with a high school class in the theatre, and just managed to go to one yarn shop and back to the theatre again, and I got these two lovely skeins. And then we have my epistrophe cardigan, a design by Kate Davis, and I got that for £20. So I got this on a drop sale on the Wool Warehouse, so it's Drops Baby Merino, and I think part of the reason it's so cheap is because I used a fingering weight, a sort of heavy fingering weight for a DK weight cardigan. And we have my more recent Selbu bra socks, which was £14. It's a bit of an excessive price for socks, but remember the £4 is actually just for the red couple of stripes, which is actually not necessary. So I got this whole red skein that I still have most of left still. I just thought it was fair to include that as well. But if I don't, it's probably more like £9. And we have my Let Love Be vest, which is £20. Used Drops Charisma. And there's this Marius hat. I paid £6 for that. I think I used a mix of Drops Lima and Drops Charisma. And for this dog jumper, I spent about £6. Again, using Charisma and Lima. And for my quick lunch socks, I used £8. This is a pattern I kind of combined myself and also used a pattern from a book. The only thing that I want to mention with that is that I used Drops Charisma for socks. They have no sole anymore, like the bottom of the sock's just gone. Never do that. So always make sure your sock yarn has a nylon or something that's strengthening it. And I managed to get 3 pairs of mittens for £20 worth of yarn of Ask Hifa. So Hifa Hillesvåg is the yarn producer, and the yarn Ask was enough for 3 pairs of mittens, albeit not the thumbs of the last pair, so I have to borrow a bit from Fina there, but generally that's how much it knitted up for. And then there's my leg warmer pattern, that was £12 using Drops Lima. and these male mittens, which I love, £8. And lastly, my mitten calendar, which cost me £21 with cascade fingering weight, but technically I could probably have done with £12 had I stuck to the smaller needle size that I did the first 4 with, because you just need less meterage for that. I barely started the second skeins. So what I want to tell you with this is just, we sometimes pay a lot for yarn because we think the yarn is gorgeous and it's going to make what we knit look good, but I think it's more, I guess, true to the craft. We want to be creative. I think maybe using less extravagant yarn to make things look good because you made it look good. It's very easy to do with color work because you just put them together the yarn, you select the colors and how they go together, and you can do that with very, very cheap yarn. I've even done it with acrylics once because I literally had no money for yarn, and that's kind of, I would say, I find more impressive. Like, yes, you can make some amazing socks if you use some hand-dyed sock yarn and make a vanilla sock, but you've probably added more to that project had you made, oh, I don't know, a cable, lace, color work, something that adds to that, that showcases your skill more so than the yarn. And that's kind of one of the things I want to encourage with this podcast, I think, to have a bit more faith in what you can do. Never say I can't do that with knitting. Unless you actually have like a defect in your hand, which is totally fine and understandable. But unless you have that, actually, you can do it. I had this experience the other day. I'm gonna wrap it up soon, but like I went to a knitting meetup that a friend of mine is setting up in her flat, which is lovely, and I was like trying to explain to these knitters, like not trying to sound too condescending, but just wearing my color work jumper, my Marius, just saying, yeah, you can do this. It's a very simple jumper, and they just look at me like I'm being really obnoxious. It's like, okay, aside from the color work, which yeah, you may need to work into your hands and get more comfortable with, the jumper construction in itself is really simple. So I don't limit yourself. Don't say I can't do this, I can't do that. Even if you're a beginner, there are so many things that you can do. Don't look at the pattern and say, well, that looks really challenging and very complicated, and look at all those colors. I think you should just look at the techniques that are involved. If it's color work, you know, make sure there aren't more than 2 colors per row. If it's just 2 colors, yes, you can do it. You totally can. Don't limit yourself, is what I'm trying to say, and don't think that you need to pay lots of money for fancy yarn in order to make something gorgeous. I think you are the one who should be making it gorgeous, and you're the one who can make it look gorgeous, and use your skills to make it look amazing, rather than just paying lots of money to get, I don't know an example of like really expensive yarn, but you know what I mean. Like, I think, yeah, spoil yourself with that fancy yarn. I mean, I do, but still, try to have faith in yourself and that you can make amazing things with the most unassuming yarn. And also want to comment on the plastic wrapping in my shelf. You know, you hear stories about moths, and I recently squashed a bug that I didn't have time to identify before I squashed it. It was probably just a mosquito, but you know, I'm not taking any chances. So I've just decided to wrap up things, and I'm looking at all my yarn and there's like no trace of anything there, so I'm just being overreacting. But I'd like to have an advice if like you have anything that I should do to just be better safe than sorry. I've ordered lots of lavender sachets, and I have cedar wood balls, and I have even a lavender spray that makes my room smell like a toilet. But yeah, just like preventive measures and things I can do in case there are, I don't know. I mean, I see yarn shops have their yarn out all the time and they don't get, you know, eaten by moths or what have you. So I'm not panicking. I'm just trying to be clever when I'm having my yarn out on display like this. I just want to, yeah, be better safe than sorry. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap things up now. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this episode again has just gone on and on as they tend to do. Even when I think I don't have much to talk about, turns out I do. So thank you so much for subscribing, for having reached this little milestone, and for taking part in the CAL. So I will see you next week. Have a lovely week and happy knitting. Bye.